going to go back to the Brownie boy and see what he has to say again.
Disease when Messiah comes, according to Isaiah 35. Isaiah 35 again does not explicitly mention Messiah, but it does say that there will be great miracles of healing, which in fact were the hallmark of Jesus' ministry.
Okay, he says that the Jesus healing, the J-Boy's healing, was the hallmark of his ministry. Let's see if that's true or not. But first we'll go see what he says a little later on.
Read you a couple of quotes just so you can hear what other Jewish scholars say. This is not proof, but I just want you to know that Rabbi Shochet's position is not the only position. According to
Okay, he says that Rabbi Shochet, that J-Boy was a transgressor, is not the only position. He can show you other positions. So we're going to show you other positions about the healing ministry of his J-Boy. Okay, I'd like to introduce you over here. This is very famous historian, Richard Carrier. He debates many Christians about their cult of Christianity, and of course he proves it. His name is Richard Carrier. You should read a lot about him. He writes about Christianity and how all the miracles and everything that they claim are all a fake and a fraud. But let's talk. He talks here about actually the healing ministry of his J-Boy. So let's take a listen.
About this beyond what gets covered in this debate. So I'm going to just get to my main choice of what I'm going to argue as the negative case for what we're talking about here, the reasonableness of the Christian faith. And I want you to think about a fact that I read about on the plane here. I was reading an article about a particular charity group that's working on a particular problem these days. And it was a quite alarming statistic that this charity was working with. And that's the fact that every 21 seconds, somewhere on Earth, a child dies from contaminated water. That means by the end of my opening statement, over 50 children will have died of diseases contracted from their local water supply. Now start counting off the deaths in your head. It's pretty horrific. This is one of thousands of examples of fundamental injustice in the structure and design of the world that I could mention. But to keep it simple, I'll just use this one in particular because it is especially relevant to Christianity. In the time of Jesus, half of all children died before adulthood from diseases. I want you to imagine that. Imagine that now, more than half of all children born, all children you know, your own children, never survive to be adults. Most die miserably. And imagine that's just the way things are, and yet it's totally preventable. I want you to think about that for a moment. Not only could someone who had the ability to eradicate all diseases just get rid of the problem altogether, right immediately, but even just knowing the germ theory of disease and how to decontaminate water, food, and milk, and sterilize instruments and utensils, and maintain community sanitation, even that can reduce the frequency of child death from half of all children to less than 1 in 1,000, like in America today. Now imagine that now that half of all the children you know are dying, but we could make that 1 in 1,000. Now did Jesus do that for us? Did he or his God tell us about germs or parasites or how to create a less diseased world? No. Humans had to figure it out on their own after thousands of years of misery, and then they had to do it themselves. Jesus never mentioned anything about how to create this better world that we made, nor did any Christian get the message for almost 2,000 years of ruling half the world. And when they did get it, it didn't come from Jesus or God. It came from guesswork and experiment. It came from science. In the Gospels, the Jews come to Jesus and complain that his disciples don't wash their hands before they eat, like everyone else was doing. In fact, everyone else was washing their cooking utensils as well. We now know that that's a pretty good idea, and we know why. It reduced infection. So did Jesus say, hey, you're right. In fact, you should do that even more diligently because it will kill the germs that kill you and all your children? No. Jesus argued that we don't have to wash our hands before we eat, that washing is a human tradition with no endorsement from God, and that nothing we put into us can harm us. And as he is claimed to have said in the Gospel of Mark, not even poison. Clearly, Jesus knew.
Okay, so we see his healing ministry. And now we're going to show you the healing ministry. You look over here, the Black Death. Okay? Medical has stagnated during the Middle Ages. The most authoritative account at the time came from the medical faculty in Paris, a report to the King of France that blamed the heavens in the conjunction. The report came circulated a series of sufferers that the plague was caused by bad air. The importance of hygiene was recognized in the 19th century. Until then, it was common that the streets were filthy with live animals of all sorts around and human parasites abounding. The Christians, most of where the Black Plague came was in the Christian territories. They were living in filth, okay? And more than a half of Christianity, of those people killed, you can read it over here, how many people died from this Black Plague. 7th century, 40% of the population of Constantinople died from the plague. Suggests that half of the Europe population died as a result of the plague before it disappeared in the 700s. After 750, epidemic disease not appear again in Europe until the Black Death 14. So we see that this is how his healing ministry, and I'm sure these Christians prayed to their God. And now we're going to see the Talmud, which him and his satanic cultist worshippers talk about the Talmud. Cleanliness and health. The Talmud urged the proper care of the body as an obligation which owns towards himself. Cleanliness they held a basic prerequisite to good health. Rinse the cup before and after drinking, recommended the rabbis. Similarly, they cautioned a person should not drink from a cup and hand it to another, for it is dangerous to health. Talmudists lived among people who were especially troubled with eye disease, still a common affliction. But Talmud blamed it principally on the lack of sanitary habits among the people. Better a drop of cold water in the morning and the washing of hands and the feet in the evening, and all the eye salves in the world. The rabbis looked upon the maintenance of bodily health as a religious obligation. When Hillel finished his session of study with his pupils, coming to them part of the way, they said to him, Master, where are they going? To perform a religious duty. Which religious duty? They asked. To bathe in the bathhouse. That a religious duty? One who is designated to scrape and clean just of the king, which are set in theaters and circuses, is paid for the work with nobility. Surely must I, who am created from divine image and cleanness, take care of my body. And you can read further how the rabbis instituted health precautions and everything, which this brownie boy ridicules, and he said they added to the Torah, they added. Okay, so we see that even Richard Carrier agrees that it's better to follow the Talmud than the Satan books of these Satan cult worshippers of the Exgens. Thank you all for listening. Oh, I have to make my video short because, they have a short lifespan, and we'll continue later on. Thank you.